the truth of it is the thing that really moves me every time is when the audience sort of lets the story get under their skin. It's the first thing that I actually figured out about the film. It's the first thing that I wrote because I thought that I can usually really start working on something once I figured out the structure. And I thought that the structure for the film, the way it begins, is that it is really setting up the mystery of the movie, and it's meant to sort of like implicate the audience and sort of cast them as a bit of a detective for this mystery, which is like it's not a murder mystery, but it is a mystery of who these people are to each other.
Yeah.
And that way, the audience is going to be sort of welcomed into the story, and not just as an observer because you're watching a movie, but observer of these three people. And I think that we, of course, go back to their childhood and really get to hear the story. And by the time that we're back in that scene that we saw in the opening scene properly, then we're able to actually hear what they're actually talking about. Yeah. And also we, as the audience that is the detective, you're then, have some ideas and have some thoughts on like who they really are to each other. You get to sort of start to solve the mystery. Actually, it really had to do with what the story was about and what the characters were going through. Because if you think about the two principal characters in the film, Haesung and Nora, who they are to each other is actually, it can't just be kind of boiled down to one word. It is about something pretty ineffable and a thing that is like hard to pin down. Like they're not really exes because they only held hands as children. Yeah. And they're not really friends because I think friends talk more regularly than they do. And of course, even throughout their lives, as you see in the movie, who they are to each other changes. Like there is a moment in their youth where they're kind of like, it's the person that they're flirting with, right? So yeah. I think because of that, there's only really no way to really describe who they are to each other except for this word that I know, having grown up a little bit in Korean culture, this word inyeon. And I think that that's why I thought that it was the right thing for the movie, because it is about three people who's connected through so much time and so much space, but are somehow able to, but are able to then still stay connected through all of it. Well, I feel like the thing about the carousel is it is sort of enclosed in glass, and I think that there's something about it where it's like it also gets lit up at night, and there's so much of it where it's a bit of a jewel box, right? It's not something where it is so out in the open that you can reach out and touch the way that it is sort of closed in. And this is a very specific thing for Jane's carousel because it's of course out in the open air by the water, so it's meant to protect it. But I thought that it was just such a special location because it's a very romantic place, and I think that it is a really, really romantic place that you really go when you want to show a beautiful vista of New York City to your tourist friend. Yeah. And I think that so it really was connected to character at the end of the day, and I think that of course carousel is something that kids ride. Yeah. And of course that is such an important part of the story because it's about these two characters who's like really revisiting the childhood of each other in each other. Well, I actually think that the difference between theater and film is that the time and space in theater versus in film is that time and space in theater is figurative, but time and space in film is literal. Yeah. So because of that, the challenges are going to be a little bit different because, of course, when you're creating literal time and space, they're just like a natural part of like making a movie where you're like, oh, actually, we can't shoot there. Or like, hey, it's actually raining today. Yeah. Or like, there's a way that it's like the world around the making of the movie that is going to really come and rudely interject in the making of the movie, which I think that was the biggest transition of being like, hey, actually, I now really think about when the sun's gonna fall, which I never used to think about when I was working in theater. Yeah. And I think that really is all of it, which is that like I feel like, but of course the power of literal time and space is that you can imply so much, you can see so much without language, just through images, because images themselves become text. And I think that silence has become text because it is connected to image and sound. And I think those are sort of the ways that I think that it's both more difficult in some ways and easier. Well, I think that, there's a part of it where as a filmmaker, what I love best is when they talk about the craft of the film and things like that. That, of course, like, is really wonderful for my vanity, But, of course, at the end of the day, the truth of it is the thing that really moves me every time is when the audience sort of lets the story get under their skin and let it become sort of a part of their lives, and then let it be a kind of like, a part of the language that they have. For example, nothing moves me more than when an audience member, like weeks after having seen it, is still using the word inyeon as a part of their lives, and they talk about it as a now I can't think of any connection without thinking about inyeons.